today's session has Deepika as a participant and Rahul as the facilitator, as the guest facilitator. And this session is part 2 of design and development series. So earlier in part 1, which took place in last Thursday, we talked about how to do design and development by looking at the content and the activity and integrate them. Integrating them is a commonsensical problem-solving approach. And last week, we talked about different archived sources, different dead, canned sources of information, like printed text or video or audio recording, things of that nature. And this week, what we are going to be doing is going to explore live sources of content, sources of information, which is a live human being. It could be a cat or a dog also, but we will limit ourselves to live human beings. And so that's what we are going to be doing. And Esther, if you can show the slides. Folks, here is the good news. Today's session, we have only one slide, and we are going to be making up the rest of the content. Here is a list of different types of human beings, different types of content providers, people who can provide content. Can you please take a look at these 10 different people? There are more, but we will limit ourselves to 10 and see if there is any item in this list which intrigues you, which you would like to talk more about or use the first thing to discuss.
So I'm just like to have a definition of what a native is.
Native is if I'm going to be doing pre-departure training for a bunch of people going to the United Kingdom, I will say, today we are fortunate to have some wonderful view of the United Kingdom who happens to live between the empty ground between Oxford and Cambridge.
Right.
And so that is, you are a native. You are also an informant, but yeah, I'm going to treat you more as a native.
Okay, thank you. Yep, that makes sense.
Deepika, are you back?
She's still in transit.
Thiagi,
Oh, no, she's back.
I'm not back. I've just entered the restaurant, but I'm listening. I heard you describe natives. I'm just here to pick up food, but I'm listening. Yeah.
Hey,
multitasking.
Deepika, good. You are a native of which culture, which country, which nation?
India.
Wow, strange place. Is it true most people in India are snake charmers?
Oh God, that question.
Okay.
Sure. We can make people dance to our tunes, sure.
I will change the question. Is it true that the major cause of death in India is snake bite?
I don't think so, no. Certainly not. I don't know, actually. I have not read the statistic, but I don't think so. I think
okay.
female infanticide first, and then diabetes or obesity or diabetes, I think. Yeah.
Good. So, folks, here you have straight from a native's mouth. People don't die of snake bite, they die of poisonous death due to snake bite. So, what we are going to be doing is give some samples of the types of training packages we created in which one or more of these human beings perform a major role in giving the content, giving the basic information. Last week, among other sources, we talked about interactive lectures where a subject matter expert is the major source of information. I did not include the subject matter expert in the list for the very important reason I ran out of space on the slide. So you can have 11 as subject matter experts. Is there any particular content provider in this list which you would like us to get started? It can take a number, any number between 1 and 10 as a content provider. And I will talk about some examples where this person plays a major role. Either Ken is mute or I am
Sorry,
mute.
could you please repeat that question? Sorry, Tyagi, could you repeat the question, please?
Which of these 10 people who can provide training content which you would like us to see examples of, and you would like me to talk about a training program which involves one of these people?
Got it.
We'll,
Got it. I will just.
we'll pretend you have 10. So
Ken's
give
gone
me
for number 6.
number
Ken's written in the
6.
chat, Thiagi. He's written number 6, participant 1.
Oh, okay. Hey, thank you. So Rahul has
I'll go with
taken
Rahul.
his job very seriously as the facilitator. Number 6, people who share an experience. And primarily, number 6, what we are going to be doing is talk about a set of games that Roger Greenaway calls the game after the game. So you play an intensive game on any topic, and after you played the game, you debrief the people by playing a game. So, for example, we have folks play a game called whatever. They play a game called the Banga, which is about cultural differences. After they play the game, we have a bunch of graduate game players. And Esther, can you kill the slides so I can look at the people's faces? That is Rahul. I can see his face. That is Deepika. Okay, so we have played a game called Banga, and at the end of the game, we can play a debriefing game either online or in a face-to-face situation. For example, we can have the people who played the game get together in teams, and each one of them thinks of what is one major insight you got from playing the game. What did you learn from playing the Banga game. It doesn't matter if you don't know what the game is. So they have played an intensive simulation game. And after that, we are playing a debriefing game. We have people in teams and we ask them what is a major thing you learned after they have individually thought about an insight they got. We organize them to talk to other members of the team, and then they come up with what is a highly frequently repeated insight they got from the game. Deepika, have you ever played the game called Banga?
No, Tyagi, I haven't actually.
Oh, wonderful. Okay.
Bingo I have, but not Banga.
Oh, good. Let us pretend you have played Banga and you'll be
Okay.
making a statement about what you learned, and Ken will be making a statement about what was the major insight for him because he's in your team, and Marco joins your team a little bit late. So the three of you figure out what it is. And then each team shares with all of the other people the common insight they got. They listen to other teams, and then you, as the facilitator, discuss what is it earlier groups have reported and what is the training objectives and how much you have reached it. And in case you want more information, Deepika, Rahul has put on a link, and you are still in the restaurant.
No, I've come back home. I'm just
Okay.
closing the
Oh, good. You can start eating now. So that is a debriefing game. The participants have shared an earlier role play or a simulation game or a non-simulation game. And in order to emphasize what they learned, we conduct this as a game. Okay, so let us assume that Rahul is conducting a workshop on problem solving. It tells the group of participants, hello, everybody, I'm going to give you a challenge. Your job is to figure out how to meet, how to achieve the challenge. You see the door on the other side of the room, and what I want for you to do is create a bridge between this table where I'm sitting and the door using books. There are plenty of books. I want you to create a bridge in such a way people will be able to walk from here to the door without stepping on the carpet, without stepping on the floor. And here is a restriction. You cannot use books which are taller than 6 inches, and you cannot use books which are shorter than 1 centimeter. And you have 5 minutes to do that. Go do it. So that is what Rahul says, and he sits down and plays free cell on his computer while people are working hard. And after 5 minutes, Rahul says, okay, everybody stop doing it and let us do a debriefing. What happened? If I were to ask you who was the leader among the group of participants, who would you identify as the leader? And think of it and share your leader identification. And okay, Deepika, why did you say Rahul was the leader? That is because he started pushing people around, telling them what to do. He seemed to be full of control and command, and he has charisma. So that is why I nominate him to be the leader. And we ask other people, and okay, let us summarize what you thought makes somebody a leader, your list of leadership qualities. And I'm now going to explain to you what research has to tell about leadership qualities, status, and leadership. All of the depictions you made may not be true. It is not necessary that people with glasses are more likely to be leaders. We can have blind leaders if you want. So let us discuss more about that. What made you think taller people make better leaders, and so on and so forth? So that is item number one. Here is question number two. Do we hear better if we pull our earplug out? Okay, good. Question number two. The task given to you was to construct a simulated bridge. If it were a less tangible task, like I want you as a group to figure out how to increase the psychological safety on today's session on talking about leadership qualities and things of that nature, will it be easier? Will you find it quick? Will a true leader emerge? Will somebody say, hey, my PhD research was on psychological safety, and let me tell you what I found out? Or will most people want a definition of what psychological safety? So, which is easier? Tangible, concrete task for you to achieve, for a leader to achieve, or somewhat intangible task for a leader to achieve. So all I do is conduct a game like activity. And if it doesn't look like a game, I change it slightly. Next question I'm going to ask you. Step one, I want you to write an outline of the answer. Don't show it to anybody. Step two, on the back of the piece of paper you use, I want you to make a prediction of what will be the most frequently repeated answer from everybody in the room. What I'm trying to do is have you think in terms not only of what you think, but also in terms of what other people are likely to think. So we can keep changing the way we process the responses. So this can is a game after a game when people have shared a common experience. I was talking about a game played after a game, but you can do it other way also. Okay, so the
Sorry,
company,
Thiagi, you're using the word game, but it's actually, just in my mind, it's just a debrief.
it's an
We're-
activity, it's a debriefing activity. I
Right.
use the word game because Deepika likes playing games.
Ah, that was it. There you go.
Okay, by the way, most recently played a game after the game, not by playing a game in the beginning, but I was working with a group of poll workers. In case you don't know, in the United States, it is going to be election day next Tuesday. and many dogs are frightened by election. Many poll workers are also frightened by election because there are predictions that this is going to be a tough election to take place. And my job was to reassure potential poll workers who have been conducting polls for many, many years to reassure them nothing dangerous is going to happen. They have all kinds of protection they can have. So the common experience they all had is hearing other people's rumors and gossip about what's going to happen in poll. And they also had a lot of questions like, what should I do if somebody comes to the polling booth with a long gun, with a rifle in hand? And if we try to stop him, he says, Second Amendment right say I can carry a rifle any place I want. I'm just making you. So we have people come up with potential hazards that they anticipate, how the people talk among themselves on how they would handle these kinds of critical situations. And then we have an official poll procedure manual designer who has come up with the legally acceptable and unacceptable things and share them with the group. So this was a game, debriefing game or debrief activity, which we played not by creating a previous common experience, but by asking people what was your previous common experience and concerns and anxieties regarding being a poll officer. Okay, Ken, thank you for coming up with number 6. Okay, anybody, including Ken or Marco or Rahul?
There was coaching, I think, right at the top.
Yeah.
Just
Okay. Wow.
yeah.
Esther, don't show this slide. I'm trying to make sure they have memorized it. No.
I did. I remembered coaches right at the top without you mentioning.
Okay. Good. How many of you do coaching? And what are the type of training topics where coaching is going to be useful? Hey, Deepika, who do you coach and what do you coach them on?
I coach people who have absolutely no other coach to go to for things. Um, but so a range of people. I mostly prefer to coach individuals who reach out without the corporate intervention. And those are people who are usually looking for either work-life balance or they for some sort of personal growth, which includes their career growth. That's one kind of people
Wonderful.
that I coach, and the other are people within the corporate space. Usually, I take like specific skill-based coaching, like maybe public speaking or how to address the media, stuff like that, or how to manage a team, that kind of specific,
Good.
but very
Very good, Deepika. Let us take work-life balance. Let us take a situation of one-on-one coaching. Usually, most coaching is an activity. It is not, hopefully, you don't sit people down and say, let me give you a lecture on work-life balance. It is a common word which is work and life. Some people use a hyphen between work and life. Others prefer not to use it. So what is the difference between work-life balance and work-life imbalance? And so on. And so forth. That will be a boring approach. So
yeah.
instead, this is what Deepika says. She gives the person a piece of paper with a definition of work-life balance. But before letting him read that piece of paper and the glossary definition, Deepika says, "Hello, Marco. What do you think
Is
work-life
Marco
balance?"
even here? Oh, he is. Okay.
Hello,
Yeah,
hello.
I'm Marco. Everybody's here, Deepika. He came late because he's keen on his work-life balance. He wanted to spend his time with his grandson. Now that is finished, he's getting into work. And so you tell Marco this sheet of paper contains, among other things, a definition of work-life balance. And that is what we are going to be working on today. And you chose work-life balance as the topic, remember? Okay, so before we plunge into it, can you give me a definition of what work-life balance means to you? Hey, Marco, if you're there, can you open your mic and attempt a definition of what work-life balance is?
What work-life balance is? Mm, so for me, it's a mixture of doing stuff that I have to do at job and knowing that yeah, I have to complete my task, everyday task, based on what is expected for me to do, but also setting boundaries that allows me to have my personal life and knowing which are my limits and how I can put both of them in the same place and respect one to each other itself. Knowing that, for example, if I know that I'm at work, I'm focused, but if I'm disconnected from work, like try to set this boundary, like giving my best to not think about work and finding this balance of having the best of both of them as and fun as much as I can.
Thank you, Marco. That's a wonderful definition. The key elements I understand is doing the best at work and also setting boundaries so the work does not intrude in my personal life. So let us see how your definition compares with my definition. If you turn the page over and read my definition and think of your definition. Marco, I'm going to wait for a minute while you do that. Okay, what would you say is a major difference between my definition and your definition? Blah, blah, blah. Marco, here is the next task. You said to make sure that you set up boundaries so your work does not intrude into your personal life. Can you please give me an example of a recent example of how your work made it difficult for you to pursue your personal goals, your personal priorities, and things of that nature? So,
Okay, like one example of that, it could be maybe well, there are a bit of times that maybe I have to work with different time zones that requires me to spend like late night time working at that part. So what I try to do is to accept that yeah, that's one responsibility that I have and I need to complete it, but also to make sure that I'm not going to do this every time, that it's going to be like some exception that I allow myself to do it. But if there's some other stuff that I want to do with my friends, like to make sure that these things are in balance, that yeah, I can work after work some days, but not all the days, because also I need to take care of my personal life itself. I need to take care or have my own time, or saying, okay, maybe I'm going to stay late, but that means also that I'm going to also start later, meaning that I can use my morning for something different to use in my personal life, and not to be dragged fully for this part of yeah, you have to spend every time and you have to sacrifice everything for what you have, what is expected for you to do at work. So maybe it could be one example when I'm working
good.
with different time zones itself.
Thank you. Marco, one intrusion is you work with fellow participants, colleagues, partners in different time zones, and that interferes with your sleeping time, interferes with your family time, interferes with your dinner time, and things of that nature. So you have decided to balance it by setting a boundary, saying, I will not be able to participate in cross time zone activities during the weekends, and I cannot do things online after 5 p.m. in my location. So you set up some boundaries. This is good. Marco, this is what we are going to be doing. I have on the same piece of paper 5 steps in achieving work-life balance. And we are going to walk you through these 5 steps. We will take some interferences with your personal life by work demands. And as you see, the step 1 is what is the work requirement. Step through what personal preferences you have which interfere with your work requirement. Step 3, can you generate 3 or more approaches to make sure that your you set up boundaries to prevent work-life interference. As you can see, this checklist has 6 items. We will take one of your work-life balance challenge and we will walk through it. And later on, I'm going to ask you to take another work-life balance challenge, and I will not be talking to you. I will let you look at the checklist and go through one step at a time and apply it. And your homework is to take a third work-life balance challenge and do it with the checklist, but without any feedback from me or from anybody else. So that is, Deepika, is an example of a coaching activity. Fortunately, most coaching activities tend to involve a conversation, and that is how we do it. To look at some other coaching example, recently I worked with the local Red Cross first aid class, and our job was to teach people how to do Heimlich maneuver. And anything which is a physical activity lends itself to coaching. So this is what we did. We had among the participants in the room, we had 4 participants, and I demonstrated to them how to give the Heimlich maneuver, under what conditions, how should we give the Heimlich maneuver. And 2 of the 4 people I coached, I made them the leaders of the red team, and the other 2 people leaders of a green team. I told them, you got 15 days, 2 weeks to train as many other people in our first aid course or program, and your job is to teach them how to do Heimlich maneuver. And once you're taught somebody how to do Heimlich maneuver, if you're a member of the green team, take that person to a member of the red team, how that red team member test this person's ability to give Heimlich maneuver, and see if he passes. This is the goal. You got 2 weeks. Anybody who you successfully taught becomes a member of your team, which is the green team. And anybody who becomes a member of the team, number one, has to learn it from a member of the team. Number two, he has to recruit somebody and teach that person how to do it. And also, green team members have to test members of the red team who claim they have mastered the Heimlich maneuver procedure. At the end of 2 weeks, we are going to count how many red team members have been certified and tested, how many green team members have been tested, and which team has the most number of members wins this coaching based game like activity. So this is another example of using coaching. Okay, folks, any comments, questions, or choice of a number from your mental PowerPoint slide? Take a number, any number, 1 and 6, we talked about, unless you got more questions or unless you want to say, hey, coaching is something I can use and I want to talk about that. Esther, go ahead, put this slide. Good.
Number 8, Thiagi.
Participant storytellers. Okay, we are talking about using human content sources. And here is what I want to do. In this particular activity, we are going to use an interactive storytelling technique. And I'm going to tell you a story of a successful use of human people as resources. And we were training a group of software engineers to be sent to Bangalore. And as a pre-departure training, we came up with an activity in which we had a group of natives from Bangalore available online. So we had the pre-departure training people to come up with questions and get together in teams and choose the top 3 questions they wanted answers for. 3 things they wanted to learn about going to Bangalore. Wow, I frightened Rahul, he disappeared. And so that is what we did. Then we had them interact with the Bangalore natives, ask the questions, come up with the answers, work as teams, and say, based on the answers from people from Bangalore, here are a couple of things we should not do, and here are a couple of things we should do. So that was a very interesting and successful, and many of the pre-departure trainees were surprised about some of the things the Bangalore people informed. So that is my story about using human beings as a source of information. Would any of you give me another example of using human beings as information sources? Okay, here is a human being. human being disappeared. Maybe it is an illusion. How many of you use other people other than you, the facilitator, ignoring you, have used other people as information sources?
All the time, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
I love to use participants to answer their own each other's questions.
Good, good. Okay. And so let us assume that I told you a story. Let's assume you are going to train a group of Japanese participants who are going to be working in the United Kingdom 6 months from today. And what human sources, there are obviously many sources, what human content sources will be useful in this situation? The participants are Japanese. The work requirement is they will be working in the UK. And who do you use as sources of useful content, useful information?
Existing Japanese employees who are already based in London.
Very good. Excellent idea. Existing employees working for the same corporation who are already based in London. And Rahul, what kind of questions would the participants likely to ask these existing employees?
Where do I live? How do I pay for electricity? Where can I play golf? Where's the local church? I mean, it's all about their own personal lives, first of all, before they start worrying about work.
Wonderful. So there is a bunch of personal life questions which you want to clear the air, have people respond.
And most importantly, the food, because they'll be very concerned about how they get Japanese food and if it's even possible in London.
Okay, and let's pretend you are an informant, you are a Japanese person working in London. What will be your answer? Sample answer.
There are many, there are many Japanese, first of all, living in London. There are many sources of food that we are familiar with in London. These are some of the nice areas because you've got children that you should live in. This is how you would, acquire a house and pay your electricity, etc., etc.
Very good. Thank you, Rahul. Let us say we took care of all the personal day-to-day living types of questions. What would be some more cultural, philosophical types of questions people are likely to ask if we keep?
So if your boss is an English person, then these are some of the strange customs that they keep that you should be aware of.
Very good. Give us a sample of these strange customs they keep.
That they talk a lot. They don't. They're not very comfortable with silence, and they like to raise their voices periodically, which we don't do in Japan.
Okay. Hey, very good. Do they all? Is it true they all play cricket?
Correct. 4 times a day. But they don't get into the T20 final, so it's okay. And then the Japanese person says, "What is cricket?"
It is an insect.
Indeed.
Oh. And what could be some tough questions they may want to ask, but are not brave enough to ask?
What What might be afraid of asking? This is a difficult one with the Japanese because they don't really voice their, they're hidden,
Oh.
outsiders. So, but they might ask questions around, they might be keen not to embarrass their English peers, and just want some awareness on do's and don'ts, perhaps.
Good, good. Is it true if we make any grammatical error in the way I talk, the English people are likely not to tolerate it?
No, but not true.
They will not be correcting me in public.
No.
And what misconceptions the English people are likely to have about Japanese employees?
That we just eat sushi 4 times a day, that we all play golf at the weekend, that we don't like loud noises, that we bow all the time, that we're subservient, that we are impeccably dressed and we don't like mess, that we, etc. We do sumo at the weekends. I don't know.
Oh, good. That's what all typical Japanese do. Okay,
Indeed.
this is a storytelling type of thing. I told a story. I had Rahul come up with a similar story, and we can keep on doing this. And what becomes the learning point is we can have people create stories which is related to a training topic, and if that stories reveal major misconceptions, we can correct it instead of saying what are some things you stupidly assume are true about the English people. You let them tell a story. The major thing telling stories is like asking people to put on a mask so they can come up, they can make any mistakes they want under the assumption other people will assume I'm making that mistake because I'm making up a story so I can get away with it. And we can, the best story I told, I can change and say, okay, how would you come up with a similar story which involves a group of women employees who are coming to London? What kind of questions will they have in contrast to the types of questions men have? And what questions will family members have? Things of that nature. So that was number 8. Okay, take a number, any other number, unless you want to continue with number 8. Esther, can we have this slide? Ah, good.
Yeah, I think we do partners. Number 10. Oh, unless somebody else can choose, please.
No, you're speaking on behalf of the whole room.
Fair enough.
Okay, good. So, folks, you listened to coaches, listened to debriefing games, you listened to interactive storytelling as 3 examples. Now, here is what I'm going to ask each one of you to think. Think of these 3 examples: coaching, playing debriefing games or debriefing activities, interactive storytelling. Somewhere among these, what is one thing you would apply to tweaking, improving your training session. So what is your application plan? This is a question for everybody. What would you do that is related to coaching activities, debriefing games, and interactive storytelling? Don't give me the answer. If you are ready, raise your hand. Good. You don't have to be perfectly ready. Okay. Rahul and Deepika are paired with each other. We are going to do a peer coaching activity. Deepika, your job is to listen to Rahul. Your job is to fake active listening behaviors. You maintain eye contact with Rahul, nod your head from time to time, but your task is to understand what Rahul's plan, and in your beautiful, wonderful, competent coaching approach, you ask questions of Rahul to focus him on his plans and things of that nature. Give me a sample question you would ask when Rahul said something. Deepika, what question could you ask Rahul?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Rahul is going to talk about his plans for applying, and I don't know exactly what he's going to tell, but as a super coach, you know what kind of questions you can ask in order to encourage him to think deeply.
Why do you what do these plans mean for you? Why do you want to make these plans?
Wonderful. Thank you. Excellent. Deepika, now for real. Hey, Rahul and Deepika, can you talk to each other? Rahul, you tell Deepika what your plans are, and Deepika, you listen in an appreciative mode, encourage him to think deeper, encourage him to anticipate what things can go wrong, things of that nature. You're on, Rahul.
So when I do an activity normally, I put aside a time. And that time, let's say, is 20 minutes. And then I might put 5 minutes for the debrief. But the debrief itself is, what did you learn? What can you apply? Very good. Let's move on. What I'd like to do is make that debrief at least 50% of the activity. So now I would, ask people, to tell me about your experience. How did you feel about it? What worked for you? What didn't work for you? And then make a game out of how could we apply this in a, give me a work context situation. How could we apply it in that situation? So we're empowering the end user. So what I'm intending to do is, increase consciously and also facilitate it by having the time in my planning in order to do debrief games, as Thiagi called it, but really debrief coaching, games, activities, all of the above.
Deepika, say something profound.
I'm actually losing internet in between, so I'm very broken. Yeah, I'm sorry,
No
I'm not
problem.
able to.
Deepika, I will pretend to be you.
Thank you.
Good. Rahul, so basically what you say is you're going to make the debriefing take on as much time as the previous activity. So you appear to be feeling guilty about not spending enough time for debriefing. what if you don't have time for debriefing and you or your participants and your bosses all look at debriefing as a fringe type of activity? How would you make sure you sell the concept of debriefing to your participant?
I don't think it's even a case of one has to sell it. I think it all boils down to, at the end of the day, the value add. And I think most of the issue is my own mindset that there has to be more content. I have activities in there, and the balance between content and activity is not the issue. It's the balance between, if we break activity down into activity plus debrief, so it's almost like activity plus activity. It's the second activity, the debrief, which isn't sufficient enough. So I think I can sell it. That's not a problem. I think the major problem, Thiagi, is with me
So
and being
how
comfortable putting it in there.
how can you sell it to yourself?
Yeah, how can I sell it to myself? By when designing courses, you have the narrative, design the activities first, and build the content second. I think that's the route around this. Because traditionally, one's always been taught to design the content first and then do the activities as the afterthought. But I think if we build the activities first, then give it sufficient time, then whatever's left over, the delta, can be used for content.
Wonderful. So, Rahul, let us take the Japanese employees situation. So, you are saying, let us figure out the activities first and then choose the content. Maybe from listening to you, maybe one other extreme could be think of the debriefing questions and answers first, and then see if we can come up with an activity to fit the debrief. And then you go to content. How does that sound?
That's very radical. That's something I'd like to investigate. That's very radical. Yeah.
So, for example, again, to go back to your scenario, Rahul, maybe one of the insights I want the Japanese participants to acquire is we are different from the English people. The English people are different from Japanese. This is something I should expect, I should anticipate. This is something I should try to encourage the English people to say what is strange and bizarre to us among the Japanese, or equally strange, bizarre Japanese or some. Okay, so given that, hey, maybe can I come up with an activity where you're put into two groups, each group with strange and bizarre behavior. One group, for example, being told that when you're having a conversation, stand at least 6 feet away, whereas the other group is told stand close and intimate to the other person. So can we create artificial differences and see how they react? And then during debriefing, we can say, this is the instruction given to you, this is the instruction given to the other person, and things of that nature. Okay, so that
actually, we could reverse it and actually have an activity about why are we focusing on difference? Why don't we look at what we have in common?
Very good.
So we recognize that we are different, but actually there are many things that we have in common. Family, work-life balance, love of food, et cetera, over there. And through that focus on what we have in common, we can then look at what we have that is different between us to increase that understanding of us.
Wonderful. So just that becomes a great activity. And just to extend on that, maybe we can have a person play the role of a Japanese, a person play the role of an English person, even though they are all Japanese people. And we can say, come up with similarities and talk among yourselves and come up with a similarity which is unusual, probably unexpected. What is a strange similarity which people frequently miss? Is it everybody loves sushi, or is sumo wrestling should be banned in the United Kingdom, whatever it is? Okay. So, example of partners, this is action planning kind of activity. One person plans the action, the other person listens and gives suitable suggestions, asks questions, and keeps on probing. So, by the way, recently we asked people, think of your strength, think of your talents and skills you have. Think how much these talents and skills are used on your job. Can you redesign your job so you will get an opportunity to make more use of the special talents you have, which are being currently neglected? And you come up with the idea, share it with a partner. The partner, the peer coach, asks you questions, and you come up with a suitable plan of how to share it with your bosses, with your HR group, and things of that nature. Okay, 1, 6, 8, 11. Esther, can we go back to the slide? By the way, did you all read Esther's chat message?
Yeah.
Today, we are going to break at 11:55. And no, it's not 11:55 already. So 5 minutes you lose, but tell you what, next week I will have Esther give us extra 5 more minutes. Okay, 1, 6, 8, 11. Choose something else in the list.
Number 6, please.
Number 6. We talked about participants who share an experience. Number 6 is about debriefing game. So we can choose number 7, which also says participants and things of that nature. How many of you are familiar with the concept of appreciative inquiry?
No.
So basically, the idea is don't teach people how to solve problems. The world is full of focusing on problems. Teach people how to use solutions we already have. So that's the basic concept of appreciative inquiry. Focus not on what your weaknesses are, what your strengths are. Focus when you go to a client, don't ask the client what keeps you awake in the middle of the night, what anxieties do you have. Ask the client what things about your organization that makes you very, very happy, and get together with other people, come up with things that make you happy, and try to utilize them. We are talking about using human sources as content providers. Here is a question. People usually, their brain usually starts thinking about possible problems. If I use human sources, it could be totally biased. One Japanese employees' perception of English people are going to be very different from other people. What we do to compensate. So people automatically, their brains tend to think of what possible questions can arise. So here is a question I'm going to ask you. What could be some of the advantages of using humans as content sources? We know what could be the dangerous things that can happen when we use human beings as a source of information. What could be some positive, wonderful, strong, interesting things that can happen? So go ahead, come up with a fantasy or real response to the question. What are the advantages of using human beings as content sources?
If you're really asking the question, I can give you an answer.
Yes. Can
Okay.
you give 2 answers, please?
Sure. I think, first of all, if you are facilitating in a customer's location, they have better understanding of their culture than you will. So they're closer to the truth, firstly. Secondly, I think positive of asking the participants is it gives them the, if you want to call it, psychological safety to, you know, if you ask them about this, then they're free to speak about that and more difficult subject areas.
Okay, good. So one advantage is because they know the culture, the response is more likely to be truer from their point of view. So that is one of the things. So how can we build upon it? That is an advantage of asking human beings to provide responses, and it makes people aware, related to their culture. So what can we do to make the participants aware this is a major advantage?
Well, you could reverse the question and say, what happens if we didn't include you in this? How would you feel? And their response would be, you know, not very nice, blah, blah, blah. So therefore, you then reverse it to say, what are the advantages now of including you in the XYZ?
Okay. Good, good. So that is one of the elements of appreciative inquiry. By the way, another advantage of getting the information from a human being, like an employee who has been in the London office for a long time, has been from Japan, it becomes much more personalized rather than having a videotape of somebody telling or reading a handbook on English culture for Japanese or something like that. So this becomes more personalized. And when I'm doing that, I may tell the people today we are not having an expert tell us about the English people. Today we are going to have somebody who was experienced English people from your own position, from your own situation, and you can ask this person questions that are important to you rather than his telling you history of England and Charles the Third was Charles the Second type of responses, which could be interesting but may not be relevant to you. So that is the approach for appreciative inquiry, asking people to give you information as various wonderful advantages to it. We build upon it, we incorporate it, and we explain to people, hey, you are getting these advantages. Okay, so let me uh, let me talk about item number 2, which is action learning. How many of you are familiar with action learning? Okay, action learning has two parts to it. One is action, you get the participants to do something, and the other one is learning. They get some useful information. Let me give an example. Uh, my colleague Matt used action learning in an activity called the $10 million game. This activity lasted for 52 weeks, one whole year. Every Monday, the group of people, selected people, these people were selected as being potentially talented and likely to contribute to the company. Every Monday, Matt walked them through collecting needs data, planning a project, collecting financial information, writing a proposal, pitching the proposal to your boss, things of that nature. So, this was on how to come up with a project, how to come up with a proposal, how to pitch the project. And Mondays, they meet and discuss one of the skills related to generating revenue for the corporation. And they are told at the end of the year, at the end of 52 weeks, you would have come up with a proposal and pitched it to your boss. And there is going to be a committee of the high decision makers. They will choose, they will decide whether the proposal you made is worthy of pursuing. And they're looking to see if your proposal will generate or save $1 million. And if it will generate $1 million, it will be approved. Next year, you don't have to do your day-to-day task. You implement your proposal and try to make $1 million for the company. This is action learning. The project they did was a real project. It's not a simulation. It is, hey, come up with a proposal. Your proposal sounds good. We will fund you. We will give you release time to do that. So, one example of action learning. You can come up with different types of action learning activities. So that was item number 2, where you and your colleagues get together, work as a team, learn from each other, and come up with a proposal. Okay, live sources number 3. We all know our customers are the most important people. We can use the customers as a major source of information. And for example, one of the activities we did recently was to get a group of customers, and we told the customers we are going to be talking about satisfying the customers. That is today's topic. So here is what I want for you to do. I'm going to have you come up with customers' expectations and how they are met. Can you come up with a personal list of positive things that the customers' expectations are met? The best experiences customers have and the worst experiences the customers have with the company. And do it independently, do it alone, get together in teams, come up with the common best and worst customer experiences, and let us share it. And what can we do with our best customer experience list? How can we ensure that it is used? And the worst customer experience list, what can we do to remove or reduce its impact? So here the human content source or the customers, they're talking about what is happening to them, what they're happy about, what they're unhappy about. Okay, number 5, natives. Last 3 weeks ago, we were in Switzerland. My friend Samuel in Switzerland wanted us to learn more about people who live in the southwestern part of Switzerland in a place called Valais. And he wanted us to figure out about the cultural values and day-to-day life of people in that area. And we did a field study, which is item number 5. We learned about Valais by going to Valais and eating the local food, talking to the people, shopping in the local co-op, and things of that nature. So we spent 5 days, each day given a task. For example, day 2 is where can you buy lactate pills for you to consume if your stomach reacts to lactic acid in milk. So you don't feel nauseated, you don't throw up. So that was the task. And I had to go to the local pharmacy. Nobody understood me. And I tried few words of German only to discover people in Valais or belong to the French speaking part of Switzerland. So I had to rechange it. And finally, when I got through it, and yes, they were able to find lactate pills, but it has to be special ordered. It will take 2 weeks to get it. And eventually I found a place. And in the process, I became aware of certain behaviors of the mountain people, one of which is they don't believe in satisfying the customer. They believe in selling what they have. They believe in sending me away if they don't have it. So we did a lot of things, went and ate. The most favorite food this time in Switzerland is chestnut. So it cost us 35 Swiss francs to order a plate of chestnut. But what they did was to give chestnut with all kinds of meat, all kinds of fruit, and things of that nature. So the chestnut is an adjunct, and we discovered people in the mountain areas eat a lot of meat. So that is our field study experiment, and that makes natives into action. Okay, so these are samples of using human sources as content resources. And most of you probably actually already use these to a large extent. And I want you to go beyond just using the participants themselves and going beyond and asking yourself, can I have the participants use their colleagues? Can I have the participants partner with somebody else? Can I have the participant? Can I have the customers of these participants come and give information? Okay. Which kind of brings an item which I skipped. Item number 4, informants using a game called the brain pick game. And here is an example. We had a session on presentation skills. And what we did was to use people who have done a lot of presentations in conferences and professional presentations. And we asked our participants, we are going to give you a set of people who have a lot of experience. What questions would you like to ask about folks in the area of presentation skills? So somebody come up with a question on, let us assume we are told that Deepika is an expert in presentation skills, and instead of letting her give you a presentation, what kind of questions would you like to ask her so she can give you the answer? Anybody?
Before presenting, what are the 3 things you always make sure are there?
Okay. What are 3 important things you want to be sure about before making your presentation? Excellent question.
What are the 3 biggest mistakes you've made when presenting that you wouldn't want to do again?
Okay, what mistakes have you made and how did you recover from it, or how do you not do it? How do you make your presentation interactive? So not only is that a presentation, can you make it interactive, says somebody.
What aids could you use to make your presentation more interesting
Okay,
or
what
engaging?
props, aids, media can you use? Okay, so step 1 of the brain pick game is teams of people come up with questions. Step 2, they select half a dozen important questions. For example, when we played this, one of the questions is, how do we open a presentation in such a way it attracts everybody's attention? Another question was, what mistakes people usually make and how do we avoid that? Another question, how do we end our presentation on a highly positive note? So these are some of the questions, and we assigned one of the questions to each team. So Deepika's team was the question on how do we make sure we don't make some common mistakes. And we had 5 people who are experts, and they rotated among the teams. So somebody came to Deepika's team, and the Deepika's team asked the question, what are the common mistakes and how do we avoid them? And the person gave information. Deepika's team wrote the key points, and after 5 minutes, that person moved to the next team, and some other person came to your team. So Deepika's team sticks with a single question and compares the answers from different people. And each of the expert presentation people go to different teams and they are asked different questions and they give the answer. After about 30 minutes, each team compares all of the answers they received and they come up with what they consider to be the top 3 answers. For example, Deepika's team comes up with what are the 3 common mistakes and how do we avoid them. One of the common mistake is running out of content and not being able to do something. And how do we avoid them? By asking people, what did you learn from it? How is your experience? Kind of debriefing that previous experience. So this is an example of brain pick game. Here is another example. Recently, we trained a group of people to go to Liberia, and we had 6 people who are native Liberians currently living in the United States. So the group came up with questions on what are the taboos we should observe when we go to Liberia, and what do Liberians appreciate from foreigners, and what things we should be careful when we are eating in Liberia. Things of that nature, they collected the answers. So this is using informants, not necessarily academic experts, but people who are familiar with the context. Okay, I want you to think of a training session you are currently conducting. I want you to ask yourself, how can I increase the variety of human content resources in my training session? And I would like to have you share your plans for applying the things we learned. And Esther, could you put the slide on the screen, please? Just to remind you. So the current things you are doing, most of you are experts in involving participants as their own human resources in the content area, but can you think of using coaches and colleagues and customers and natives and informants and partners and things of that nature?
I'm intrigued by the participant storytellers. I think that would be, I need to think more about it. But for me, it's quite clear about just involving, the participants in the debrief more, either as coaches or as customers. I like that one about the customers, what works, what doesn't work over there. So I think there's a number of ways. I mean, I already do it, and I think we all, Deepika, probably you do it as well, involving them there, but actually consciously being aware of it and finding new ways of increasing that participation, because you're always going to have some people who naturally want to speak. You're going to have others who don't naturally want to speak, but if it's done via an activity or a game, you still achieve the end goal, don't you? You still get them to participate and add value to it. Those are my thoughts.
Good, thank you. And talking of your topic, what's one of your topics where you can use human resources?
Well, I mean, the course we just finished today on problem solving, I think, I mean, that's one of my courses I'm very happy with, because it's the lightest course that I've ever created, because it is so participatory of the individuals, within the entire area. But having said that, I think I could at least increase their participation in the debrief by quite a high percentage, frankly speaking.
Okay. Problem solving. One random approach is to say, let's apply action learning. Everybody get together in a team and come up with a problem that is facing our organization, which if we solve it, we will live happily ever after. And rather than you deciding what could be a problem, here is what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to bring you several of your colleagues who have not been in this course, but they are employees. You ask them, what problems do you frequently face which makes it difficult for you to work? And can you ask them for information? Can you massage and process the information and come up with a list of problems, and then come up with the one problem you want to solve, rather than talking about problem solving in general? What is a problem as perceived by your colleagues or something along those lines? And another approach we can do, borrowed on what Matt is doing, at the end of the session, each team gets to make a quick 5-minute presentation on which problem they want to focus on solving and what is the first step want to use. And I'm going to ask 3 of your managers come and sit down as a panel. I want them to give you feedback on whether the problem you identified is an important problem for us to solve. So you can insert the people during debriefing, during judgment, during deciding who is the winner, which team won, things of that nature. Deepika, in work-life balance, what kind of human resources you can use?
I could ask other participants in the group to share, first of all, each one's definition of work-life balance, to establish that, to begin with, work-life balance means different things for different people. Then I could progress to asking if I see a clear sort of, clear two kinds of definitions or three kinds of definitions, maybe I would put them in groups and ask them to brainstorm how each of them strike their work-life balance at the moment, or what they do to achieve it. Otherwise, I could also just ask the group to share what measures they take to achieve work-life balance, like you asked Marco.
Okay. Okay.
I could also, did you say how would I use participants for it, or did you ask what activities? Sorry, I forgot.
What type of participants could be useful
Yes.
information providers?
Oh,
Related
people who are enthusiastic speakers,
Okay.
usually, I think. Or
Okay, here are some random thoughts off the top of my head. Deepika brings half a dozen spouses. Here are the employees. Here are
oh, like that. Okay.
family members.
Half a dozen of my spouses.
And they come in, and instead of asking the participants what work-life clashes do you feel, asking their family members after this person joined the company, what ways is he neglecting your family togetherness or something? Can you make a set of complaints about what the participants is not doing good? Another question could be, if you want the participants' job specifications to be changed slightly, what would be one of the items, things of that nature. I'm trying to move away from the participant. I'm trying to move away from you and see if we can get other people, Deepika. Using the participants is a good idea, but today my goal is to have you look at the customers and informants and natives and family members and the partners and things of that nature. Okay, and Esther says the manual which we used last week also contains activities which are based on live participants, live sources of information. So you can look at them. It has a coaching activity, it has a sample brain pick game, it has field studies and expeditions, it has things of that nature. So, okay, other questions, comments? And Esther told me I cannot stop before 11:55, and I cannot talk beyond 11:55. So that is a section called Thought Experiment, and you can read about that in the manual.
On that last activity, another perhaps approach is reverse engineering. What would it take to get your life out of balance? Your work-life balance to make it out of sync. So what have you experienced? And then, okay, if you were to prevent that, what would you do? So they answer their own question.
Excellent. Excellent. That is a technique which we frequently use to call the sabotage.
Right.
So instead of asking them, how can you balance work and life demands,
Yeah.
is how can you make sure your work-life balance is totally destroyed? How can you make your life miserable both at work and in your personal family life? Now, somebody says various ideas, one of which is say yes to every demand made by your manager. So let us take say yes to every demand made by your manager. So how do we flip it? One of your ideas is say yes to every demand made by the manager. What is the opposite? You can say, don't say yes or say no, but can you elaborate on that? For example, somebody may say, have a discussion with your manager on your work life balance ideas and how you are no longer able to say yes to all the demands made. Give examples of demands made on you which interfere with your family life. And given all of these, what can we do? What other ways work-life balance is damaged, and how can we turn it around and come up with the ideas on increasing the work-life balance? Good. So the next session, oh, okay, the first session we talked about different content sources and how to choose activities. This session, how to choose different live content sources and how to incorporate them. The next session, next week, we are going to be talking about how to use simulation and simulation like things, how to create simulation games, how to create role plays, and how to do similar activities, and how do we benefit from them. So that is what is going to happen during the next thing, different types of role play. And here is an example called the sudden role play. So when your session begins, for example, this session is on problem solving. And here is what I want for you to do. I want you to be cynical. I want you to say problem solving cannot be taught. Problem solving is something you are born with. And why waste our time teaching problem solving? It just encourages people to think they can solve a problem. So, what I'm going to do is I want you to think, how do you argue with me when I say today's session is on problem solving? Take a piece of paper, write, jot down some notes. I'm going to randomly select one of you to conduct an argument. And after a few minutes, I select a random person and have an argument. And after 3 minutes, I stop the arguments, tell everybody, you listened to somebody trying to convince me learning about problem solving is a waste of time. As you were listening to the argument, you were probably thinking, I could have done a much better job. Rahul did not make the correct argument. And here is what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you the opportunity. Rahul is going to be replaced by Deepika. Okay, start from scratch. Same role play. I'm going to say we are going to do problem-solving training, you're going to say that's a waste of time, but you're going to do a much better job based on what happened before, much better job based on what you think could be a more valid argument against teaching problem solving. So you keep telling me that you are the facilitator, I will be a participant. So I will tell you why I don't want to be taught problem solving. So that is, and then we start with other people, and then we may come back to Rahul and say, based on your own second thoughts, Rahul, how could you have done a better job than you did before? Let's go one more round. The idea being everybody has second thoughts, and so we can pursue that. Okay. Esther, do you have any
Yes, Thiagi, thank you.
official announcements to make?
Official announcement. Next today in 10 minutes, Will Thiagi will have his first office hours from 12 to 12:30, and tonight 8 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So if you would like to join, all the information are on the synchronous calendar.
Thank
you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deepika.
Thanks for working with us today.
Thank you.